Yo YouTube! This is my video for Monday the 15th of April. It ended up being quite a bad day in the end, which I'll tell you about. This is the second time that I've recorded this video because of the nature of what I'm going to say to you. I thought it wiser to be a bit more considered about what I say. So let's look at what happened. This is the following day, so it's Tuesday today. This is about yesterday. So before I get started with what happened work-wise, I think I would like to caveat this video and the start of my working day with a bit more information about my health condition. Now, I'm not quite ready to tell you the whole details, but I do know that I will do that at some point. It's now not something that I'm going to necessarily always keep a secret. But what I can say is that at the moment, mornings are really tough for me compared to usual. Just motivation and getting out of bed is difficult. I do have a mini operation a week on Friday, so I may tell you a bit more about the details after that point. But for the sake of just sort of the context, that's why I'm telling you about mornings being difficult. So on Monday morning, I hadn't got a job booked in from the previous week. I did look over the weekend and look on Friday, but I didn't win anything suitable for the morning. And I woke up initially at about 6:30 because the dogs were barking. So I let them out, dealt with them, and then went back to bed. And I didn't really feel inclined to get up. And in the end, I didn't really open my eyes properly until about 9:45. And the first thing I did was looked at the CX just to see what was around. And I happened to spot a job on the CX with a shipper that I use reasonably often, who I know that if I put on a reasonable bid will give me the job. So on the CX I put a bid on, and then I texted him directly and said, I'm able to do the job, but I'm going to be a bit later than you want me getting to the pickup because I'm not ready to leave the house yet. Now the pickup point was 10:30, and it was now 10:15, and I was still in bed at this moment. But I felt I had a fighting chance to get myself out of bed and ready and get there, reasonably close to 10:30. So I got the job pretty much straight away. The guy said that's fine. I said in my text I'd be there by the latest 11 o'clock, and he said that was fine. So I got myself out of bed, ready as quickly as possible. I didn't have time to make myself any sandwiches. I did take from the fridge a couscous meal that had been sort of prepared. So I had some grapes and some an apple. So I got myself out of the house and I arrived on site at the pickup point at about 10 to 11. It was 15 miles dead and about half an hour journey to get to Boston. And the job was going to Liverpool. It was a medium wheelbase van job for 183 loaded miles. I had bid £185. It was one little pallet in the end, and the pickup point, I've been there several times, I know exactly where it is. The guys that are there are really friendly, really helpful, really quick. It's very pleasant to do this job. It's a long distance, I like those jobs. It's almost basically my perfect job. It's not far from home, the guys are friendly, it's easy to carry, and it's going a long distance. It's going west, not south, towards London. So I just got on with the job, and that was the good part of the day. That was where the day was going really well. My ETA, I think I remember it to be about 3¼ hours. So it's something like 2:30ish was my ETA on Google Maps. So I went straight to Liverpool, but and when I got there I found out it wasn't actually Liverpool. There was a place called Formby, which is actually midway between Liverpool and Southport, sort of in the middle of nowhere in terms of CX work. although the roads are very easy to navigate to get to and from anywhere around that area. So I dropped off. There's a bit of a faffing about when I got to the other end in terms of the forklift driver, me finding the office and the office getting a forklift driver, but it wasn't too bad. And in the end, I was offside at 3:15 and looking good for a second job somewhere. So I made my way from there to the local supermarket and got a bit of food and then parted looking for jobs. And there were a reasonable number of jobs in the Manchester-Liverpool area. But there was a lot of drivers, and I was on the outskirts of that. If there'd been a job coming out of Southport or Formby, I'd have been really good for it, but there wasn't any of that. So I decided that I would make my way towards the Warrington area, vaguely that area. And I looked at the map and looked at the major junctions, and my first point was I just made my way down from Formby towards the first motorway. I think, if I remember correctly, it was Knowlesley, as in the Safari Park, Knowlesley Safari Park. There was like a junction off the motorway there. So I made my way down there, stayed at that junction, just at a little lay-by, and looked for more jobs, and bid on more jobs. And there was a job that I bid on that was going from Warrington to Peterborough, which was perfect for me, except it was not picking up until 9:30. There were a load of other Warrington jobs, and I vaguely had some idea at this point what it was about. And so I put a bid on of 165 loaded miles for a long wheelbase van. I put a bid on of 170, and then left it. And then I was doing other bids and other jobs. Time moved on. I was getting a bit more desperate for work. I got a bit closer. I moved further down towards Warrington. I can't think of where I was myself. I would say northwest Warrington was where I ended up. I think there's a place called Prescott. I was on the outskirts of Prescott initially. I think that's where I was. Parked up there, looked for jobs. At this point, I sort of cancelled that job going from Warrington to Peterborough because I thought it was too late. I'm going to be there about midnight, 1 o'clock at the best of times, and then it's going to be a long day. So I cancelled that, came back to looking at other jobs. And then it got to about 4:30, 4:45, and I was running out of options. And that job was still on there. So I had to look at it again. I thought if I was going to bid on this as a proper job, not just a backload job, what would I bid on it? I worked out it'd be worth £200 for me to do that job. So I bid slightly less, 195, and then carried on looking for other jobs. And at 5:07, so actually it was just gone 5 o'clock when I did that, about 2-3 minutes later, I got a call offering me that job. So it was really quick this second time. I did say to the guy, I've got a 3.5 metre van, is that okay? Because in the notes it was asking for a 4 metre van, and he said that was fine. I double checked with him where I was going, and it was where I thought, and then I accepted the job. So at this point I had a dilemma now. Do I have a rest, or do I look for more work? So it was 5:10. I had a 9:30 pickup, and I was 10 minutes away from that pickup point. So by this point I'd gone from Prescott down to west Warrington. And so I decided in the end that the wise thing to do would be to just rest up for a few hours. I had 4 hours available to have a little kip in the back of my van, and then sort of be freshened up for the 9:30 pickup going to Peterborough. So at around about 5:20, I went to the back of my van, set up my camp bed, put my duvet out, and just laid down. I was going to sort of play a game for a bit, but in the back of my van there was absolutely no signal whatsoever. So that was quite good because it made sure I had to just close my eyes and rest. had a fit full rest. My mind was racing about various things, nothing productive, and I ended up opening my eyes at about 8 o'clock-ish. So I thought I'd get up, get myself awake, get out of bed and get to the front of my cab, and I did that. And I looked at the job, and there was no. It looked strange. It was a little strange about the CX job, and there was no on my way to pick up option. And I worked out the job had been cancelled. So I'm going to describe, first of all, the nature of the job, because I have done something like it before. And then I'm going to describe what happens next, because I want you to know as much detail as I can give about this. I'm not going to name any names, but if you've done this job, you'll know exactly who the customer and the shipper were. So I was due to pick up from a distribution centre in Warrington for the customer and take a load to the Peterborough version of their distribution centre, and they do overnight deliveries. And the shipper, I have since worked out, is based just outside of Birmingham. Now, I had a missed call on my phone at 5 to 7, which obviously, in hindsight, was the call from the shipper telling me that the job had been cancelled. So at the very earliest, I'd have found out at 7 o'clock that I couldn't have done this job, having been given it at 5 past 5. So at the very earliest, I'd have wasted 2 hours, even if nothing else had gone wrong. As it was, I was asleep, and my phone signal wasn't able to take a phone call. So I didn't find out till 8 o'clock, which was therefore 3 hours of wasted time. Now, the distribution centre that I was going to go to, I've been to before, and they are really disorganised, and it's really quite stressful going to them, particularly if you've not been to the depot for a while, or even a new depot, because they're all so different. You've got to kind of try and find someone who tells you what to do. So it wasn't something I was looking forward to doing anyway. It was a 9:30 pickup and a very late start, so it wasn't the ideal job it wasn't the best job in the world. But I had put a bid on, I'd been called, I accepted it, I had prepared myself to do that job. So now it was cancelled. So I rang the shipper to find out what's going on. Now, I could hear the shipper really clearly, but they apparently couldn't hear me very well. I think the phone line kept dropping in and out. And so, eventually, I managed to work out, because he said he couldn't hear me, I managed to work out what happened. And apparently, the customer had told the shipper that they wouldn't accept me doing their job, because there was no photo of me and my documents weren't on their system. Well, the documents I have is on the CX system. I did bid through the CX. The job was offered through the CX. So I didn't really see that as being a valid excuse for not giving me the job. But fair enough, customers are customers, they get what they want. So I asked them, okay, so what money will you give me for the cancellation? And I was really expecting half of the job. And his view, his statement was, we're not giving you any compensation. Which I thought was really, really unfair. But I didn't feel in a position to argue or to make a point. He made it clear he wasn't going to pay me anything. It wasn't like I misunderstood him if I repeated to him and said, ask the same question again. Oh yeah, I've heard what you said, but what are you going to pay me? Just that would to me was a full stop in the conversation. So I could feel emotionally me getting really frustrated, and so I just chose to just stop the conversation because I wasn't going to get anywhere. I put the phone down, and I want to try and describe to you my emotional state at this point. And the reason why I'm choosing to do that, it's not because it makes me look good or makes me look better, but it's an honest reflection about how I felt in the moment. And I think that emotions are something I do struggle with, dealing with and understanding. And I think that I have got better at doing that. And I have analysed since last night why I felt so frustrated. And I think I'm going to share that with you because I think it could be of value, it could be of interest. So first of all, what did I feel? Now, just before I carry on, I don't tend to feel strong emotions. I don't feel anger, I don't feel depression very often, maybe a little bit I do, but equally I don't feel highs, I don't feel excited very often, I don't feel happy very often. I feel I would describe myself as feeling content, most of the time, and that's kind of quite level and quite static, and I'm used to that. I think some people live a life where they get very fluctuating emotions, and the only thing I want to say is humans, we cannot control our emotions. They happen subconsciously and they bubble up, and we either deal with them or suppress them. And in the past I would have suppressed it, but now I tend to try and analyse them more. Now in this moment I felt really frustrated, and a couple of tears fell down my face out of that frustration. It's not something I could control, it's just something that happened. The thing I can control is telling you about it or not, and I've chosen to tell you about it because I'm not ashamed of it. It is who I am, and I felt just completely powerless is the word I want to use. Now I want to skip ahead to this morning when I've analysed this, and now my analysis of this situation. I've worked out that one of the things that triggers my negative emotions is feeling powerless. Sort of not having choices, not having a way out. And in that moment I put the phone down, I felt completely powerless. I felt like I'd sacrificed 3 hours of my time. I'd sacrificed money when I could have earned money in that time. And I'd sacrificed being at home because I could have just gone home in those 3 hours. I would have been home, but I'd just gone home. And that sacrifice had been for nothing. And it was all down to one person's decision on the end of the phone deciding not to bother to give me any money in compensation. And that powerlessness is what I've analysed as being the cause of my emotional reaction. I felt so frustrated that it was, as I said, brought a tear to my eye. I wasn't blubbering, and I have done it in the past, but I was definitely emotionally upset enough to do a little bit of crying. So, in the moment, I wasn't in a state to think about what to do best. So I called my partner and just said, "What should I do?" And she gave me an answer, which I sort of said, "Fair enough." I just wanted to talk to her about it, to try and get some. In the moment of feeling at my lowest ebb, I wanted to just talk to someone who knew me and just get some sort of rational answer from them, even if I wasn't able to listen to it. Now, that was what happened. This is now how I dealt with that. So I have learned a strategy which does work. It did work for me in this occasion. When I am feeling emotionally powerless and really at a loss as to what to do, to how we make a decision, what I do is, and it takes about 5 minutes to sort of let the emotion go, I then start thinking, right, forget all the shit that's just happened to you up until now. If you were in this place at this time, what would you choose to do usually? Not based on the emotional response of being upset, but just based on a logical response. And my options were these. my options were dead mile at home, 3 hours, just go home and be like basically just drop all the way home, stay where I was and look for a job, or stay where I was and tramp out and look for a job in the morning. And I chose in the end to stay where I was and look for I moved from where I was about 10 minutes down the road, closer to Runcorn. So I was now southwest of Warrington, and I found a tramping site and looked for a job. And by making a decision not based on emotion, just based on the logic, even though I was for a short time emotional, it was the way to deal with it. Trying to make a decision when you're emotional, for anyone, I think is difficult. So I gave myself 5 minutes, I calmed down, I moved, I was on the road for a bit, I got a tramping site, and then I looked for jobs. And nothing came, well actually, tell a lie, there's a place called, I think, SK16, can't remember, it gives you an S. Skelling Fields, or that. And there were a couple of late night jobs coming out of there that were going around the country, quite long, juicy jobs. But there was nothing from there going anywhere near East Anglia, so I didn't bid on those jobs. I didn't want to have a second night tramping out. So in the end, there was no job, and I tramped out. And in the end, the stats I'm going to give to you are not good, but they're better than if I dead miled at home. So that was the end of my day. I ended my day at midnight, and then went to bed. So my stats. So I haven't yet filled up with fuel for this week, so I'm basing it on last week's average of 15.99 pence per mile. On Monday I drove 238 miles in total, 238. In the end I worked for 12 and a half hours, but only 4 hours of that was actually work. The rest of it was looking for work, or in the end sleeping back in my van waiting for a job. I did one CX job, £185, and then I spent £38.64 on fuel. That meant that after fuel I earned £147, 147. Oh, Duckingfield is the place, which is SK16. That seems to do late night jobs around the country. It's long wheelbase van work, so if you're in that area and you want to work at night, that's a good place to head to. So that was Monday. That's at the end of it. It wasn't in the end a very good day, and I must say that when I put the phone down, I was lying in my camp bed at this point, and I was feeling it was the first time that this job has made me feel bad about doing the job, or I felt negative about the job. I've had bad things happen in the past in terms of bad events have happened, but they're things that you deal with and you cope with. It's the first time that my job made me feel emotionally negative. It was only for a short time, and in the cold light of day the next day, it's just today is a new day, and I'm okay. Now last night I was going to block that shipper because I was so frustrated with them, but I couldn't find a way of blocking them on the phone, so I have to wait till I get back home and do it on the computer. But before I go off, I think that the way that shipper treated me, I do not want to work with people like that. They are completely the antithesis about how I think people just generally in any walks of life should be working. I did nothing wrong in terms of my decision making, about my doing that job, and in the end I wasted 3 hours of my time and got nothing for it because of mistakes made from other people. I think in hindsight this is a shipper that needs drivers to be using their own app, but why did they give me the job if I'm not on their app? It's ridiculous. So anyway, if you've done this job, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about, both the shipper and the customer, and and I bet you're also in a situation where you're not doing work for them as well. Right, thank you very much for listening to my video. Farewell, friends. See you later.